Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. It is the last Grand Slam of the year. It's the US Open draw preview and prediction video for the ATP side, and I cannot wait to get into this one because it is juicy. I'm telling you that right now. And right off the bat, I can tell you Alcaraz and Sinner are in the same side of the draw. They're on the same side of the draw, so a potential semi-final there. And then Novak Djokovic, of course, he avoids those two, but he arguably has the harder draw out of all top three players. He's a defending champion, of course, as well. Let's see how he gets, and we'll get into that in detail. There are some crazy first round matches, so this is how we're going to break it down. And before we do get into that, though, remember to that like button, do subscribe if you're new, and do leave a rating or review if you're listening on a podcast platform. Look, if you're listening on a podcast platform, thank you. And also to our members, we appreciate each and every one of you. Okay. First of all, very briefly, I'm going to talk about the projected quarterfinals for the US Open for the men's side. Obviously, it's very rare that all 8 seeds progress to the quarterfinals and we get those actual quarterfinals, but it's always good to just at least entertain what could be. Then I'm going to take you through something new, which you'll see on screen. It's a Matchflow graphic. So we've teamed up with a tennis graphic company, and they have provided us with something really cool, actually. The top 16 seeds and the projected early rounds by ranking for each of those players. So up until round 4. And then it also tells us their it also tells us their result from last year for each of the top 16 players, which is great. And also the ranking of each player they could potentially play as they move through each round. Then we will go through, of course, which I know you guys love, our bracket, and we'll pick each and every single match from the US Open the first round, make our way through the draw, and ultimately I will give you guys my predicted champion for the 2024 US Open. By the way, I don't know who it's going to be, and that's what's great about these videos. You can go along with the ride for me, and sometimes they're tormenting rides because I'm umming and ahhing and wrestling with different thoughts in my head, but that's the fun of it, right? Okay, so let's then talk about the projected quarterfinals. So Sinner Medvedev is the first one, or Medvedev even, and that is a really tough quarterfinal if Sinner has to play it. He lost to him at Wimbledon. Medvedev is arguably better on hard court. You could probably argue that so is Sinner. But I do think that's a potentially difficult matchup, especially given what happened at Wimbledon. Let's see if it happens. For Zverev, he has Casper Ruud potentially in the quarterfinals. I think he'll be pretty happy with that, if I'm being honest. And that's no offense to Ruud, but he is the 8th seed, not just because he's right at the bottom of the top 8 seeds, but mainly just because of his recent form for the last 6 to 9 months. And then we've got Alcaraz Hurkacz. Now that's a really interesting one. Hurkacz hasn't been 100%. He obviously had an operation on his knee, so whether he'll be fully fit and actually able to get to that stage will be interesting as well. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Then, if we look at the final quarterfinal, it's Rublev versus Djokovic. And Djokovic will be happy with that because Rublev is his bunny, in honesty. And it's a really bad matchup for Andre. But look, the good thing for him is that he's suddenly found a bit of good form, I think, in the last few months. And hopefully he'll be able to carry that through. Of course, he's never made a Grand Slam semi-final. So that would be a massive achievement if you were to not only get past Djokovic, but also make a semi-final as well. Let's see how he gets on. Okay, let's talk about the match flow graphic here on screen. So I'm going to be quite descriptive about it for you listeners as well. So first I'm going to go through just from 1 to 16 pretty quickly, go through firstly their result from last year, then who they'll play in round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4, and then I'll work my way down. Now, interestingly as well, and if you're watching on video, you'll know and be able to see that we can see here round 1, there's 128 players, round 2, 64, round 3, 32, and round 4, 16. What's even more interesting is the fact that you can see here that the points has been included. So the amount of points that you will accrue for winning each round. So 10 points in round 1, 50 in round 2, 100 in round 3, 200 in round 4, and also the prize money, 100,000 in round 1, 140,000 in round 2, 215,000 in round 3, and 325,000 in round 4. So look, that's pretty cool. So Sinner has McDonald in the first round, and that's not a particularly easy match, despite the ranking of McDonald, which is 140. So you could argue that look, that's a pretty easy one, right, for him. And yeah, maybe, but I actually don't see it that way. I think McDonald's been in some decent form recently. Then projected, Mickelson in the second round. He's ranked 52 at the moment, of course, and so after that, he'd have Nicholas Jarry in round 3 and Tommy Paul in round 4. So Tommy Paul is potentially a banana skin. Even Nicholas Jarry, I would say as well. That could be a potentially tough one. Jarry, of course, a big hitter and possesses some real weapons. For Djokovic, he of course he didn't make. He made the final, but he also won the title. He is the defending champion, and he plays a qualifying in round 1. Then potentially Jan Struff in round 2, Popperin in round 3, and Ben Shelton in round 4. So I would say that's pretty tough. If he has to play Struff, Popperin, and Shelton, they're all big serving, big hitting players. Generally speaking, Djokovic tends to deal with those types of players really easily, but despite winning the Olympic gold, I think it's fair to say this year hasn't quite been what we anyway would have expected of him. Maybe he did, and he knew it was coming. But I am interested to see in a now best of 5 setting, and also with his knee as well. I know, yes, I get that it's been strapped for a while, and he's had a lot of time for it to heal. But on the hard courts, if he does have any issues with it still, it will definitely show more than on a clay court or a grass court, because clay and grass are a lot easier on your knees. However, hard courts, generally speaking, they tend to be really tough on the joints and the knees. So we'll see whether Djokovic has any issues. I'm assuming he won't, but you just never know. Alcaraz, I mean, look, this is also potentially quite tough. The first 2 rounds, and no offense to whoever they get, but he's got a qualifier in the first round. And Alcaraz, of course, lost in the semifinals last year to Daniel Medvedev. And he's got Van der Zandschulp potentially in round 2, which he should get through. Jack Draper in round 3. Now, that's a very tough one, to be honest. I mean, is it as tough as Popperin? Popperin's just won a Masters 1000 tournament in Montreal. So I think you'd have to say at the moment it's on par, because Draper, before that Montreal win, I think you would have said he's a tougher opponent. And then I think Seb Korda, I know he won Washington. He's probably on par with Shelton, but I think the fact that Djokovic has Struff second round potentially is definitely above Van der Zandschulp. And so I think that's why generally it's probably a bit harder, I would say. Zverev then has Ruusuvuori in round 1. That's a potential banana skin. Zverev made the quarterfinals last year of the US Open. And then Muller in round 2, Strunzler in round 3, and Rune in round 4. I mean, a Rune Zverev round 4 is absolutely bonkers. I mean, that would be explosive to say the least, and I'd love to see it. Let's hope we get it. Medvedev, who made the final last year, plays Lajovic in the first round, then Marjan in round 2, Kaboli in round 3, and then a potential round 4 with Stefano Tsitsipas. I mean, look, Zverev, Rune, Medvedev, Tsitsipas, these are phenomenal round 4s. I have to say, like, absolutely ridiculous. I hope we get these. I mean, it'd be fantastic to watch. Tsitsipas, though, of course, has never made it past round 4 at the US Open. Rublev, who made the quarterfinals last year, plays Seyboth Wild or Seyboth Wilch in the first round, then plays Ridonek, Lehechka, and Dimitrov. Now, look, the first 3 rounds, I mean, Lehechka could be a potential issue. When he's on, he can be really difficult and quite awkward to play. But I think the first 3 rounds, Rublev should get through okay. I know Seyboth Wilch can be a little bit explosive as well, Rindenek, but I just feel like Rublev should have enough. We'll see, of course, but given his recent form, the round 4 Dimitrov, though, is just unbelievable. I mean, Guys, Zverev Rune, Medvedev Tsitsipas, and Rublev Dimitrov. We're getting spoiled if we get that. I tell you that right now. That will be phenomenal. I'm just looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping we get it. Then her catch. Now, he made round 2 only last year, which would have been very disappointing, of course. He plays a qualifier. Then Thompson. Now, look, Jordan Thompson's been in some really good form, I have to say, and he's not going to be the easiest opponent for someone like her catch, given how her catch has been playing with the knee, etc. as well. Let's see. Naudi round 3 is also potentially difficult match, if I'm being honest. And Dimino round 4, again, not an easy one, I have to say. Casper Ruud, who only made round 2 last year, but has made the final, of course, of the US Open in 2022, losing to Carlos Alcaraz. He plays a qualifier. Then Gael Monfils, who's hit some pretty good form in Cincinnati, beating Carlos Alcaraz, of course, there. I was about to say Andre Bublik, but it's not Andre Bublik. It's Sasha Bublik in round 3 for Casper potentially. And look, that would be pretty difficult, but I do think Bublik is much better on grass. I think on hard court, he's still got weapons. Of course, we know he's got great drop shots, touch, feel, great serve, but he's just very inconsistent, as we know. I think Casper will probably be able to get the better of him there. And then we've got Taylor Fritz in round 4. Now, Taylor Fritz and Casper Ruud in a round 4 matchup would be really good, I have to say. Dimitrov plays a qualifier in the first round, then has David Fokina, Baez, and Rublev. Okay, pretty good. Dimona Giron qualifier, Hachinov her catch. That's not too bad. I think Giron could cause him some issues in the first round, but we'll see. Now, Tsitsipas, in my opinion, has an absolute nightmare of a first round, by the way. Tanasi Kokonakis, and we'll go through the draw in a second. Obviously, I'll pick my winner from that, but that is a real upset alert for me. I think that is something that I'm not confident as we talk about this that Tsitsipas will get through that, if I'm being honest. He only made round 2 last year as well, by the way, Tsitsipas. He also then has Borges in the second round, Felix Auger-Aliassime, who's hitting a bit of good form as well in round 3, and Medvedev round 4. I mean, look, he's never made it past round 4, Tsitsipas, and he's definitely got his work cut out for him, I would say. 3 out of those 4 players I can see him losing to. I could see him losing to. Taylor Fritz plays Ugo Carabelli in the first round. He made the quarterfinals last year, Fritz. Berrettini round 2. I mean, that's a shocking second round. Burr round 3 and Casper Ruud round 4. I mean, Berrettini, yeah, let's see if if I get that in my draw, who do I pick? Let's see. Shelton made the semi-finals last year, of course. He plays Dominic Thiem in round 1, Roberto Batista Agut in round 2, TFO round 3, Djokovic round 4. I mean, that's a very tough draw. Dominic Thiem in his last ever US Open. I'm not expecting Thiem to come out and play some really good tennis. I think he'll probably lose, but RBA TFO, I mean, TFO's just made the final of Cincinnati. He'll be raring to go. That's a tough route for Shelton. Tommy Paul has Sonego first round, not easy at all. Then Max Purcell second round, Arthur Fields round 3, and Jannik Sinner round 4. I think Purcell, no offense to him, but I think he'll probably be okay with Purcell. But Sonego could be a potential banana skin, as could Arthur Fields, and also I do think that, of course, Jannik Sinner in round 4 is going to be a very hard task for someone like Tommy Paul, but it would be an entertaining and very physical match. And then Holger Rune has Nakashima first round. I mean, that's not easy. That's not easy at all, guys. I mean, that's a really tough first round. Nakashima is no slouch. Then Kazal round 2, Musetti round 3. I mean, Musetti, it'll be interesting to see how he plays on the hard courts, given his semi-final result at Wimbledon. Look, it was a real surprise. It came from nowhere, in my opinion. And look, can he now carry that through onto the hard courts, given that he just played at the Olympics and gone back to clay? We'll see. And then, of course, Zverev round 4 for Rune, which, yeah, I mean, that's, for me, that would be the pick of the 4th round matches, potentially. Maybe, I don't even think Medvedev Tsitsipas is better than that one. And then Korda has Mute first round, a tricky first round. Machak round 2. I mean, that's a pretty difficult one, in honesty. To be a round 3 who's been in some good form, that's a horrible draw for Korda. And Alcaraz round 4, I mean, I don't think it gets any worse than that. So, yeah, that's our projected kind of top 16 seeds and their route to round 4, who they could potentially play, and the results from last year. Okay, now it's time for the bracket. It's time to get through each and every single match. So Jannik Sinner, of course, is our top seed. He plays Mackenzie McDonald. As I said, not an easy match, but I'm going to go for Sinner and that one. Look, we don't know who the qualifiers are going to be yet. Qualifying is still going on right now, so we're going to assume and not, of course, my... I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. It's not my... It's not my favorite thing to do. Picking matches before qualifying's finished, but unfortunately, Wimbledon is the only one where qualifying finishes quite a few days before the tournament starts. That actually you can then do a bracket beforehand. Sometimes qualifying finishes the day before, a slam starts, and almost the night before, and then it's very difficult, right, to do these brackets. It's like almost impossible to do them without missing the qualifiers out. So we're going to assume that the qualifiers are going to lose, and obviously that's not. Yeah, I mean, look, that's not ideal, but let's see. I think, yeah. So Alex Michelsen and Stan Wawrinka both have qualifiers. Then Nicholas Jarry, Christopher O'Connell. In my opinion, this is not an easy one for Jarry. I have to say, I'm not again not 100% convinced when he gets through it unscathed. We'll go for Jarry. Arthur Fields and Lerner Tien, a wild card. Obviously, American, you have the crowd behind him. Fields should get through it, though. Manar has a qualifier. Max Purcell and Alexander Vukic, an all-Australian affair. Vukic has been playing quite well at Winston-Salem this week. I'm actually going to go for Vukic. Sonego Poole. Now, look, Sonego could and should cause Poole some problems. I think Tommy Poole should get through it, though. Right, here we go. This is the one. Stefanos Tsitsipas and Thanasi Kokkinakis. I don't really want to pick Kokkinakis because I think Steph should get through it. But on a hard court, and given that the US Open is just for some reason he doesn't play well here, and which by the way is one of the most mind-boggling things ever, because you would assume, given that Tsitsipas wants to hit a lot of forehands, right, that a slower hard court surface, like the US Open, which I think is now being classed as a slow, medium, or medium fast, would be more suited to his game than a fast hard court surface like the Australian Open. However, he has made multiple semi-finals of the Australian Open, plus a final as well at that slam. At the US Open, he's never made it past the fourth round. Make it make sense. Sometimes it's not just to do with the surface, it's to do with the environment as well. And it could also be the fact that it's right at the end of the year. He might potentially be one of those players who suffers from burnout. I don't know. Maybe he needs to manage his calendar better. But yeah, I mean, it's not a great look. And maybe this is the year that it clicks. Maybe it's not. But I think it's safe to say he's been underwhelming at the US Open. He's definitely underperformed. So I'm going to go with Stefanos Tsitsipas in the first round. And yeah, that's what I'm going for. Now, in terms of the next one, we've got Nuno Borges and Federico Correa. I'm going to go for Nuno Borges. Then we've got a wild card in Schoolcake versus Taro Daniel. Taro Daniel for me there. Jakub Mensik, by the way, is a really tough match for Felix Auger-Aliassime in the first round. I mean, that is not great whatsoever. It really isn't. It really isn't. But I'm going to go for Felix Auger-Aliassime. Kaboli and Duckworth. Kaboli. Zizou Bergs, who, by the way, did really well to come through he's played a couple of really good matches in Winston-Salem, and he's done well to avoid having to come through qualifying here. I'm going to go Zizou Bergs to beat Kotov. I watched him at Wimbledon up close when he played qualifying, and he obviously got through qualifying. And he seems to have something about him. I think it's difficult because on the men's side, everyone tends to serve pretty big. Everyone's got a good forehand. But he's got some decent touch and feel. I think he's got, some other things about him. But how far he can go remains to be seen. Obviously, he hasn't made any huge strides at slams, but I see him coming through this one at least. Fabio Marijan, of course, the conqueror of Carlos Alcaraz last year in Rome, and the drop shot king. I think you could argue he's got a great drop shot, but he's a very explosive player. He's got a qualifier, so we'll go for him to get through that. Then Medvedev has Lajovic. We'll go for Medvedev. Alcaraz has a qualifier. Then Shapovalov, Van de Zandschulp. Now that is a potential banana skin for both players. I mean, I think it's a real. You could argue it's on a 50-50. Denis Shapovalov's played some decent tennis recently. Van de Zandschulp, hasn't been amazing this year, given the fact that he's not seeded. I'm going to go for Shapovalov to get through that. And then Diaz Acosta and Hugo Gaston, both players who are, I'd argue, more comfortable. Well, Diaz Acosta definitely more comfortable in clay. Hugo Gaston, I guess he's a bit of an all-rounder. We'll go for Hugo Gaston. Draper should get through Zhang Zhizhen, but I tell you what, that's not an easy first round. Draper could lose that, I'm telling you now. Tabio and David Goffin. Tabio's done great to be seeded, and what's been really impressive about him is the fact that he had a really good clay court swing. When he's carried that on into the hard court swing, he's actually got some really good results. I'm going to go for him. Chorich Manarino. Manarino is such an awkward player. Chorich should have enough, though, to get through him. Matchak should beat Fognini, in my opinion. Korda should beat Mute. Giron Dimonena. Look, Dimonena, I don't know how fit he's going to be. That's the thing. I have no idea because he only played doubles at the Olympics. How is he feeling physically? He obviously had an issue at Wimbledon, and he had to pull out of his match with Novak Djokovic. So in the quarterfinals, I'm going to go with Alex de Minaur, but if he's not 100%, Marcus Giron is a very strong player to have in the first round, in my opinion, especially on a hard court with the home crowd. Navone has Altmaier. Will go for Altmaier. Evans, Khachanov. Look, I mean, Evans should make it quite awkward for Khachanov, but Khachanov should get through it, so go Khachanov. And now they should beat Svider, and Safiullin should beat Forbes, in my opinion, who's a wild card. Thompson should beat Lestienne, and her catch to be a qualifier, Rude to be a qualifier. Same with Monfils, and same with Carabea Bayena. Now look, Shang Jun Cheng versus Alexander Bublik. So that's Jerry Shang. Jerry Shang, by the way, is a damn good player. David watched him at Bordeaux up close, and Anthony watched him up close at Atlanta. Both guys said to me, look, this guy is the real deal. And you know what? I don't disagree after watching him. I think he's going to cause the upset and beat Alexander Bublik in the first round. Let's see. Humbert and Montero. I'm going to go for Humbert, and then Stricker to beat Comisana. Ramos Vinolas should not be able to get through Matteo Berrettini. He should come out victorious. The Italian stallion. Taylor Fritz to beat Carabelli even. Or Ugo Carabelli, excuse me. And Holger Rune, Nakashima. That is a tough matchup. When I'm going to go for Rune, but don't be surprised if that goes 4, if not even 5 sets, because Rune has a habit of making a mess of some potential difficult matchups in early rounds, and Nakashima is a very difficult matchup first round. Kajal versus Corona Buster. Now, good to see Corona Buster back on tour. I'm going to go for Corona Buster. Nishioka and Kekmanovic are a really good one. Nishioka, the Atlanta champion, I'm going to go for him. Riley Opelka Musetti is a great first round. Riley Opelka could serve him off the court. Musetti, though, after watching him against Mpetshi Pericard, who's got a phenomenal serve, himself, I actually think, and even on a hard court especially, I think Musetti should be okay. So I'm going to go for Musetti to get through that. Cerundolo has Sebastian Offlano an easy first round. We'll go for Cerundolo. And Pesci Pericard has Echeverry. Now, look, he's got huge weapons, Pericard. The question is he able to serve well enough to keep Echeverry at bay on his serve, and then does he have the return game, which is definitely a work in progress. I'm going to go for Echeverry. I think he might be too consistent for him. Muller plays Walton. We'll go for Muller, the wild card. Then we're going to go for Rusevori or Zverev. Now, look, this is not an easy first round for Zverev. I'll tell you that. Rusevori is he's a solid player, and one of the young upcoming players, I would say, alongside your Mensix and Machak's not that young, I guess, but Machak's and others. We'll go for Zverev. Rublev should beat, say, both Wilch and Eubanks, Rindenek. Imagine go for Eubanks with a crowd behind him to get through Rindenek. We've got Lehechka or Fuchsovich. That's not an easy match. Fuchsovich could easily beat Lehechka, and I'm actually going to go for the upset on paper. I'm going to go for Fuchsovich. Baez, Darderi, we're going to go for Baez. Greek Sports should beat Summit Nagel, and Fokina should be Hijikata, in my opinion. Dimitrov should be whoever qualifies and takes that spot to face him. Ben Shelton and Dominic Thiem. Okay. So. The question is, does Dominic Thiem roll back the years and show us something that we haven't seen really since his comeback? And that's something special. Just some explosive hitting from the back of the court, both wings, really going for it, being aggressive. If he does, he could beat Shelton. But I just don't see that happening. And so I think Shelton will get through it. Luca Nardi, who, by the way, is an exciting young Italian, plays Roberto Bautista. I'm going to go for Nardi to win that one. Shevchenko, Ketfel, going for Shevchenko. Kovacevic and TFO. TFO should get through that, and Prince should beat Sunu Kwon, who, by the way, again, is another young, promising star from Korea. Pedro Martinez to be a qualifier, then Struff to beat Zher. Djokovic has a qualifier as well. Right, round two. Sinner McCalson, Sinner. Wawrinka, Jarry. I think. Wawrinka, look, I mean, he's still competitive, but I just don't see him getting past the second week of a slam, if I'm being honest. Arthur Fields and Munaf Fields. Tommy Paul to beat Vukic. Tsitsipas to beat Borges. And Felix Auger seems to beat Taro Daniel. Kaboli or Bugs? Oh, it's a tough one. You normally go for Kaboli. I'm going to go for Bugs. Why not? Medvedev and Marijan. That would be a really exciting match. We'll go for Medvedev. Alcaraz and Shapovalov. I mean, Alcaraz should get through that, I think. Draper should be Gaston. I'm going to go for Chorich to beat, which apparently would be an upset because Tabio is 22nd seed, but I'm going to go for him to beat Tabio. Quarter match. Look, that is such a tough second round for Quarter. He could easily lose the match. I want to go for Quarter. Dimona to beat the qualifier and Hatchnot to beat Altmaier. Naudi should beat Safiulin. Thompson Hakac, it's a tough one. I don't have much faith in Hakac's knee at the moment, so I'm going to go for Thompson to beat Hakac. I'm going to go for Monfils to beat Rude. I'm going to go for two upsets there. I think Monfils has what it takes. If he plays the level that we saw at Cincinnati in parts in some of the matches, I think he's got the ability to get through that. Look, I mean, he played Rune later in the day after having to finish off a match against Alcaraz. Look, I know it was... Yeah, I mean, look... I know it was only a set and a bit that Alcaraz match they had to finish off, but still... I still think it would have affected him somewhat having to then come back a few hours later and play Rune. I'm not saying he would have beaten Rune, but I think that was definitely a contributor to it. Shang to beat Bayena for me, Carbayas Bayena, and Stricker to beat Amber, I'm going to go for. Berrettini Fritz, I mean, that has got upset alert written all over it. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna go for Berrettini. I'm gonna go for Berrettini. Rune and Carreno Busta. Rune. But yeah, I've gone for Berrettini to cause the up. I think Fritz at the US Open, he just doesn't quite seem to be very comfortable. I think it was last year's the year before he lost to Tracy Austin's son, Brandon Holt. That's it. That's it. He just hasn't been able to make like a semi-final at the US Open, which you'd probably expect him to do, given it's his home tournament, and hard court seems to be his best surface. So the pressure seems to get to him, I think, playing at home. Nishioka and Musetti, a good one. I like this one. Hmm. Hmm. Battle of the a lefty. I was going to say Battle of the Lefties, but Musetti's not a lefty. He's just got a one-hander. Potential banana skin for Musetti. Go Musetti though. Strundalo and Echeverry. I'm going to go for Echeverry to beat Strundalo. Zverev to beat Muller. Rublev to beat Eubanks. Fuchs to beat a qualifier. Baez to beat Greek Sport. No, Greek Sport to beat Baez. Oh, Fokina is a tough second round for Dimitrov, by the way. That is not nice. Fokina's recently beaten Medvedev. They go for Dimitrov. Shelton to beat Nardi. TFO to beat Shevchenko. Popperin to beat Martinez. Djokovic should beat Struff. Right, round 3. Sinner Jarry. Not an easy third round for Sinner, but I think he should get through that. Arthur Fields and Tommy Paul. Oh, it's not easy. Tommy Paul. We'll go for Tommy Paul. Tsitsipas and Felix Auger-Aliassime. Phoenix could beat him. He could beat him. Steph is not playing great. I'm actually going to go for Felix because on paper is an upset, but I don't know if it really would be. And even though Felix hasn't been playing great this year, his recent form gives me a sense of confidence that he might be able to pull off what would be an upset against Tsitsipas. Medvedev should beat Bergs or Burgess. And Alcaraz Draper. I mean, it's a tough one. I know Draper beat Alcaraz at Queens as best of 3 years on grass, different surface. Look, if Draper were to beat Alcaraz at a slam, that's when it gets really interesting. We're going to go for Alcaraz, though. Chorich and Korda. Dimona Hachinov. I'm going to go for Hachinov, you know. Not 100% convinced on Dimona and his healthiness, to say the least. I'm just not convinced at all. Arnaldi Thompson. Go for Arnaldi. Monfils Shang. That'll be a great match. Whoa. Go for Shang, you know. Berrettini to beat Stricker. And Rune Musetti. That'll be a great one. I'm going to go Rune. Zverev to beat Echeverry. Rublev to beat Fuchsovic. Dimitrov to beat Greek Sport. TFO Shelton. Look, I know Shelton beat TFO last year at the US Open, but actually, given current form, I would say TFO is the favourite. Shelton has not been playing very well. I'm going to go for TFO to get revenge for last year's US Open loss. And then Djokovic to beat Popperin, I think. Right, round 4, round of 16. Sinner, Tommy Paul. I mean, this is a tough round 4 for Jannik Sinner. Tommy Paul is so physical. He makes things difficult. He's got variety. He's great defensively. Yeah, not a great round 4 for Sinner. I'm gonna go for Sinner though. Medvedev should beat Felix. It seems to be a good matchup for the Russian. Carlos Alcaraz should beat Sebastian Korda. Korda could cause him issues, but I think Alcaraz should have too much firepower in the end. Khachanov and Arnaldi. I'm going to go for Khachanov to beat Arnaldi. And I'm going to go for Berrettini to beat Shang. Just really depends on his body. How's he feeling physically, I guess. Yeah, I'll stick with that. Rune Zverev. Now, Rune has had a very strange season, to say the least, and I think he has the ability to beat Zverev, but Zverev has been very solid recently. So I'm going to go for Zverev. And he's got some really good results, of course, at the US Open. He's made the final here before, made semi-finals. Rune, if he plays his best, he could definitely win. And he should be competing, really, in this matchup, no matter what the scoreline is. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm just not convinced with the consistency at the moment. Rublev and Dimitrov. Dimitrov could beat Rublev. He really could. But Rublev's been in some good form. I'm going to go with Rublev. And TFO Djokovic. Not an easy match for Djokovic, but I think I would argue TFO is actually a harder matchup than Shelton. I'm going to go for Djokovic, though. I think he should get through TFO. So quarterfinals. So my quarterfinals are Sinner Medvedev, Alcaraz Khachanov, Berrettini Zverev, Rublev, and Djokovic. So 2 out of the 4 projected quarterfinals I've ended up with. I'm going to go for Sinner over Medvedev. Not convinced about Medvedev recently in his form, but maybe he'll pick it up and prove me wrong. Alcaraz should be Khachanov. Zverev should be Berrettini, and Djokovic should be Rublev. Well, it leaves us with the top 4 seeds and probably the 2 semi-finals we really want to see, which is Sinner Alcaraz and Zverev Djokovic. Zverev had a chance in 2021 in the semi-finals against Djokovic. He just won Olympic gold and beat Djokovic at the Olympics. He then played him in the semi-finals of the US Open. He should have beaten him. Went 5 sets. He had chances. He did not play good enough, in my opinion. He did not play good enough. If he plays like he did at Cincinnati against Sinner in that semi-final, I thought the level was pretty high. He's got a good chance against Djokovic. He really does. And I'm actually going to go for him to make a breakthrough and beat Djokovic in the semi-finals. And in the other semi-final, we've got Sinner and Alcaraz. Look, how does Sinner's hip, even hold up? How does the hip hold up? Because he doesn't look 100%, if I'm being honest. There's still big question marks. Obviously, as well, the positive steroid test results as well coming out is not great. How does that affect him mentally? There's obviously been quite a bit of backlash to that, given that he, only got a fine and didn't get any ban, etc. And a lot of people have come out, especially players, talking about it. I'll cover that separately, by the way, in another video, in more detail, and give my thoughts on it. But I think it could play on his mind. I think it could have a negative impact, and I think Alcaraz will edge him in a semi-final. So that leaves us with a final of Carlos Alcaraz and Alexander Zverev. Look, I mean, any combination of Djokovic, Alcaraz, Sinner, Zverev in a US Open final would actually, in my opinion, be very, very good. In my opinion, Zverev's best surface is actually probably clay. But on hard court, I think he's actually got a better chance against an Alcaraz on a hard court. And that's been proven given the wins that he's got over Alcaraz in the last couple of years. Given that he beat him on the Australian Open, for example, this year. And I would also argue that against Sinner, he's probably got a good chance on a hard court as well, if I'm being frank. So, yeah, I mean, the Cincinnati recent match was a final set tiebreaker. Could have gone either way. Look, I mean, for Zverev, it would be another Grand Slam final and another chance to finally get over the line and win a maiden Grand Slam title and really put that behind him, put that a seed of doubt. And I think that heavy weight would be lifted from his shoulders winning this Grand Slam. So I'm going to go with Carlos Alcaraz. So that's my champion for the US Open 2024 title. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. I think, look, we have to be honest. I think it's the favorites are going to be Alcaraz, Sinner, and Djokovic. Sinner's just won Cincinnati, so he's going to be up there. Djokovic is the defending champion. You could maybe argue that Alcaraz is just below. How does he fare mentally from the Olympic gold final loss? is he going to be potentially burnt out and also transition from clay to hard? I think for Djokovic, he didn't play Cincinnati, he rested, but he'd be practicing on hard. Alcaraz obviously didn't look great in Cincinnati. Said he played the worst match he'd ever played against Monfils. But one thing that we can say about Alcaraz is that, for example, going to Roland Garros, he hadn't played a huge amount on clay. Actually, missed quite a few tournaments, and including Rome, and he still managed to come out and win the title. So I don't think he necessarily needs matches under his belt on the surface before going into it, which is a very weird thing to say because he's not super experienced like a Djokovic or a Nadal, where you say fine, they don't really need those matches under their belts before the slam comes around. But he just seems to be able to do that, which is pretty mind-boggling in honesty. Even for example, for Wimbledon, he lost to Draper in the second round or first round of Queens. That's the only match practice he got. So, yeah, maybe it's just the fact that his game is just so transferable to all surfaces, and he's got a very all-round, varied game that it helps his case and cause, I guess, on any surface. He knows how to play on them, and he doesn't necessarily need to tweak his game too much given the surface. Maybe. Cool, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to hit that like button, do subscribe if you're new, and do leave a rating or review for listening on podcast platform. Appreciate each and every one of you. It's a long video. Thank you for bearing with us, and we'll see you very, very soon.